Hello everybody, Remedy X here, and today is a good day for Commander players. But it's an unbanned day. So yeah, April 22nd, 2025, unban announcement. There's 5 cards unbanned in Commander. We're gonna look at it as Commander in broad, and then we're gonna also talk about my favorite form of Commander, which is CEDH, so competitive. Um, so first, I guess let's start off with cards. There is Gifts Ungiven, Sway of the Stars, Braid's Cabal Minion, Coalition Victory, and Panoptic Mirror. I'll read through the cards and what they do a little later here once we actually get into it. So Gavini Verhey on behalf of the Commander Format panel. We said we would do an evaluation of the format's ban list ever since the panel was announced last year. We've finished the evaluation of the list, and today we're unbanning 5 cards. For those using brackets to define your decks, you should be noted that the cards being unbanned will be immediately moved into the game changer list. Not something I've heard many people talk about. All 5 of these cards are now game changers. You can only play them in tier 3 and above, and in tier 3 brackets, you're restricted to only 3. Okay? Uh And if you're interested in more talk about brackets, you can check out today's update, including several new game changers in the article. Okay, so they have updated game changers. I actually didn't know that. uh, cards of it. Okay. I don't think we actually need to read all this stuff. I'm just gonna go into the cards. Gifts Ungiven. This is a beloved card with a great history. Many of you out there have enjoyed casting this card in all sorts of formats. We're excited to return it to Commander. The previous concern has been the nature of this as a power tutor, the time-intensive casting process, and combos it enables. We considered within the structure of brackets and just regular pre-game conversation, if your deck is trying to infinite combo people with this card, they should often help sort out if you're playing the right environment. On the other hand, a fair Gifts Ungiven is very fun and akin to factor fiction in the politics and interplay between players it can create. So right here, Gifts Ungiven. I'll read it for you. 4 mana, a blue and 3. For an instant, says search your library for up to 4 cards with different names and reveal them. Target opponent chooses 2 of those cards, puts the chosen cards into your graveyard, and the rest into your hand. So the closest to this is Intuition, which is 3 mana, grabs 3 cards, target player puts 2 into the graveyard, 1 to your hand. So it's 1 more mana, you get 1 more card to your hand. So the instant speed on this is really nice. It's 4 mana, which is kind of expensive for CEDH. So your 4 mana cards are normally like trying to win you the game. But this does just set up breach lines super easy. This can just be like grab breach, LED, brain freeze, Savine's Reclamation. Doesn't matter what they put where, you win the game. Right? They give you LED and breach. You just cast your breach, do your LED line, you brain freeze yourself. They give you LED and brain freeze, which is probably the best route to go. You put the breach and the Savine's in the graveyard, you flashback Savine's Reclamation, you go through your combo, right? It's all right there, super easy to do. It also makes it possible with other colors other than white now. You can do it with green. You can do like, the returns it to your hand, returns the mark to your hand. Or even to the top of your library because it's instant speed, so you can just Noxious Revival it to the top of your library, draw your Underworld Breach for your turn, and then go from there. So yeah, there's a lot of options with this card. I think this card could see CDH play. It more than likely will. I think people will play this in the dedicated Underworld Breach decks. Um, I think it will see play. I don't see every Underworld Breach deck playing this for the lack of slots. But it is a very powerful card. For 4 mana, you essentially tutor 4 cards. I definitely think it's going to be played. Really, where I think it's less likely to be played are in like your 4-color deck. But even then, maybe it will. I think a lot of people will be playing for this for a while. I think people are gonna eventually sway away from it a little bit because of the 4 mana. But I definitely think it's gonna see play. So, yeah, Gifts Ungiven. I think their stock is gonna increase pretty decent for this. Sway of the Stars card I didn't even know existed until this. It's 10 mana, so 8 and 2. Each player shuffles his or her hand, graveyard, and permanents he or she owns into his or her library, then draws 7 cards. Each player's life total becomes 7. A 10 mana way to reset the game akin to Worldfire, which was previously unbanned by the Commander to little fanfare or play. There are some players who enjoy this effect. It is an impactful card, but not very powerful. There are plenty of other spells that cost 8 or more mana that have far higher impact than Sway. Our guess is it will see little play, but people who enjoy cards like these will now be able to play another one. Yeah, so exactly what I said there. 10 mana card. It's not going to see CDH play. I'm trying to think of any deck that would even consider this, and there's not one, guys. Not for CDH. For casual play, I think people will like this. Just kind of basically reset the game. Everyone's life becomes 7. Especially if they have a way to win the game quickly from there. Now, it does shuffle permanents. So, not excluding lands. All your lands will go back to. You will start basically a new game, but at 7 life. And that is where I think this card could run into some issues. People trying to loop it to just keep resetting the game. But the kind of deck that can just dump to 10 mana and then dump to 10 mana and then dump to 10 mana after constant resetting is not easy to accomplish. So I don't foresee it being a big issue, but I could see people trying to do that. It does not affect exile. So if you can exile, right? Shuffles his or her hand, graveyard, and permanents he or she owns. Oh, owns. I believe that. Does that hit exile? Hand, graveyard, and permanents he or she owns into his or her. I think that only affects what's in play. I believe it does not affect exile. So if you had a way to, sorry, cough came out of nowhere. If you have a way to exile most of your library except for the key combo pieces to like try looping this, then I guess that's a thing you could do. But outside of that, this card, it's not gonna be played. A little more of a controversial one, though, is Braid's Cabal Minion. It is 4 mana, black, and 2, legendary creature, human minion. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices an artifact, creature, or land. 2/2. We'll read their explanation first. This card is a beloved character and a card many are nostalgic for. When played as one of your 99 cards or later in the game, it is a totally reasonable effect with an appropriate impact on the game. The most frustrating Braid games are when it is out extremely quickly and people feel locked under it. However, as little as a single removal spell can really set an entire plan back. As commander decks have become more efficient, with more targeted removal spells, and players have gotten better at identifying commanders they don't want to play against, and have pre-game conversations so that gives us the confidence to bring braids back. A lot has changed since braids was banned in 2009. We mostly believe people will know what they're signing up for in a game with braids as a commander. As a card in the 99, it is reasonable and acceptable. So, couple things with braids. If she's in the command zone, you have that right to just say, hey, I don't want to play against that. And I have done this to people before. I have a guy in my friend group who built Turgrid. Anyone knows who Turgrid is? It is, in my opinion, significantly worse, significantly more toxic than braids. She's 5 mana. If anyone discards or sacrifices anything, she gets it. Okay? Very summarized version of it. But mono black as well. The fear for braids is she comes down early and she just keeps locking everyone out of lands so no one gets to develop, no one gets to play anything. And you just stall out the game. Or, yeah, you just grind out the game with just braids. Now, it is each player, and it does say creature. So, if the braids player can no longer sacrifice for its effect, they have to sacrifice braids, which is then when the game's allowed to continue. But it's not a fun scenario to be in. I personally was a player who caused some of these unfun situations. I think to a lesser extent. I played Mirren, of Clan Neltoth. So experience counter commander, black, green, and 2. You get to take a creature from your graveyard. If its converted mana cost is less than your experience counters, it goes to your hand. If it's greater than your experience counters, it goes to the battlefield. You get experience counters whenever creature you control dies. And it would loop things like Plague Crafter and Chupacabras and stuff like that. And it was a very removal-centric deck, but it was all on my opponent's choice. They all get to sacrifice what creatures they wanted. So you just had to deploy multiple creatures to get around it. But that was still a pretty toxic deck for my play group to play with, because it said, hey, if you're in a creature heavy strategy, you have to flood the board or you can't play creatures. Don't get me wrong, I still love that deck. I had a blast playing it, but at first it was totally fine for the play group, but after a while, when people really figured out its play patterns, and I figured out its play patterns, and like, oh, my whole goal is to just loot Plague Crafter and then stick a Sholdred, and then you have to sack multiple creatures every turn. I could return multiple creatures, and now you're locked out of creatures. It got to a point where it wasn't fun for anyone. And it wasn't fun for me because I was doing the thing and it was too powerful and people hated on me, and wasn't fun for them because they weren't allowed to progress their plan. Braids can play into that same conversation. So have your pregame talks about braids. If she was legal at the time, she 100% would have been in that Mirren deck. And yeah, it would have made the conversation worse, I think. So I'm not sure that I actually agree with braids coming off. I think in the 99, most of the time she's reasonable, but if your deck is dedicated to that strategy, you got to watch it. People aren't going to want to verse that. So, all right. I think that's all I got there. Coalition Victory. This is one that pretty much everyone knew was coming off the list, basically. It is 8 mana, Wooburg, and 3. It says you win the game if you control a land of each basic land type and a creature of each color. This card... Sorry. This card engineered a great deal of discussion. A lot of it boils down to how impactful and how much of an auto-include it is in a deck with 5-color commander. It's essentially reads, you win the game if you control your commander. It is not the most satisfying end of the game, and it does begin to become an auto-include in many decks. Is it an appropriate card to exist? However, it can be easily interacted with. A single piece of removal in response to your 5-color commander means you spent 8 mana to do nothing. You also need to untap with your commander and 8 mana. There are many expensive spells that will do akin to ending the game in 5-color deck if you resolve them. Additionally, those engaging with commander brackets, it is within the time frame of where we expect an I win combo to fall. So basically what they're saying here is 8 mana I win the game cards ultimately are acceptable. They expect the game to be ending when people are hitting 8 mana. Spells are strong enough at that point, the game should be at least trying to end, if not. I agree with a lot of those things here. Now, something to know. This does not work with all 5-color commanders. Take Kenrith, for example. He has 5 colors in his color identity, but he is a white creature. He only has a white CMC, his border is white. He does have the other 4 colors represented in his ability text box, but he is still a white creature. He will not count for all 5 colors. This will count in something like the Dragon, which is actually all 5 colors. But is that how you want to win the game with your Dragon deck? I don't think so. I think Coalition Victory is a totally fine card to come off the ban list. I don't think a lot of people play too many 5-color decks that would actually want to play this. Like I said, Kenrith is white. You know, Sisay is white. Najeela is red. These aren't 5-color commanders. They are for the sakes of color identity, but if you gave a creature protection from blue and attacked a Najeela player, Najeela can still block it. It is not a blue creature. It does not meet the requirements for Coalition Victory. Now, you can have other creatures, and if you were to build one of each color creature and one of each land, so you had to have 5 distinct lands and 5 distinct creatures, that is a ton of work to make this card work. And you deserve that. That is 10 different permanents in play and 8 mana. Congratulations. You deserve it. To win with a sorcery. Panoptic Mirror. 5 mana artifact, has imprint X. Tap, you may remove, or has imprint X, and tap, you may remove an instant or sorcery card from your hand with converted mana cost X from the game. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may copy the imprinted instant or sorcery card and play the copy without paying its mana cost. Okay, so we'll get into the stuff here. I personally have been a Panoptic Mirror enjoyer ever since it was originally printed back in Darksteel. The promise of using a cool spell turn after turn is so fun. This is still true today. A value mirror is a blast. There's 2 problems with it. The first is imprinting an extra turn spell. The game is over immediately. The second is imprinting an extremely repetitive, such as a board sweeper, so the game cannot move forward. The latter is something to be a lot less worried about in 2025. There are so many answers to artifacts and decks that even if you're under a board lock, you can get out of it. The first one will be addressed by the bracket play through the restrictions and combos in a lower overall density of extra turn effects. And regardless of the bracket system, many tables have a good idea of whether they enjoy infinite combos appearing in their games, and if that's something they want players to do in their decks. Finally, it does take a full turn and a large mana investment, and people have several windows to respond to it. They can kill it before you untap, in response to the ability, or after the ability resolves and your opponent is down a card. And then I think that breaks into the next section. So we'll talk about Panoptic Mirror. So Mirror. This is another one. I have heard some people saying they're going to play it in CEDH. I think those people are crazy. I think the mana investment of this card is way too much. So essentially what you have to do is you got to pay 5 mana for it. Then you got to pay another 5 mana for your extra turn spell. So it's 10 mana. And tap it. And then you have to wait until your next upkeep to get an extra turn. But then you will get infinite extra turns. Because on the next upkeep, you'll get another copy. Next upkeep, you get another copy. I agree with everything they said here. That it is highly mana intensive. That doing it with cool card effects is just a blast. Notably, if you do this with something like Cyclonic Rift, it is the baby Rift, I believe. I'd have to read. You actually, but I believe you can actually do the big Rift, but that would count under the board wipe section, where you can repeatedly board wipe. But yeah. So overall, I think it's a cool card. It has a lot of fun applications for casual Commander. It should not see competitive play. The only card on this list that I could see actually being competitive is Gifts Ungiven. The other ones just don't have the stuff for it. So yeah. That's really it. I do think you could do some really cool things with Panoptic Mirror in casual, though. I think it could be a very fun card. I would be afraid of just putting my mana and stuff into it, though, and it getting removed. So keep that in mind. Because like it says, after you do the tap to imprint the card, they could remove it then before you actually get the upkeep trigger. So, all right. These cards have not been legal in Commander for a long time, originally being banned between 05 and 09. And a lot has changed in both Magic and Commander since. We are not opposed to banning them again at some point in the future, if they prove problematic. However, these feel in line with our expectations and are okay to try given where the format is today. I know many of you out there will be excited to try them, and I look forward to reading about what you all will come up with. These changes are effective immediately on tabletop and will be reflected on Magic Online later today. If you're interested in more in the brackets, here's a link. Go read the other article up today. Okay, so a little more here. If you read here in bold, on Dockside Extortionist, Jeweled Lotus, and Mana Crypt. This is kind of an interesting point, and this is where more of our CEDH discussion will go, other than just Gifts Ungiven, possibly. We would be plugging our ears if we did not acknowledge the elephant in the room when it comes to this series of unbans. The September bans, Dockside, Lotus, Jeweled Lotus, that is, and Mana Crypt, and Nadu, no one mentions it, but many players out there probably immediately scrolled down to this long article as quickly as they could to discover the fates of these cards. We did talk about these cards and are not unbanning them at this time. Opinions from the Commander format panel varied. Some believe Commander is more fun without them. Others would like more time to see how Commander bracket system is adopted before doing anything here. And the others felt it is too soon to do anything on these cards. There were few people who were open to doing something with Jeweled Lotus now, but that was not a majority opinion. The overwhelming majority of the panel did not want to do anything with these cards at this time. I will be transparent and say I believe if any of these are ever to return, the most likely is Jeweled Lotus due to its one-shot nature, iconic feel, and the ability to help support high mana value commanders. I want to be clear. This is not me saying that that will ever happen, but that was one among the panel with the most traction. That was the one among the panel with the most traction. I know many of you love these cards. Many of you are also glad you no longer have to play against these cards. There's always that kind of push and pull when it comes to with powerful and potentially ban-worthy cards in Commander. I appreciate that there are many people in both camps, and no matter what happens with these cards, somebody will feel like they didn't get the result they wanted. However, we wanted to talk about these cards here honestly, and what we said internally for transparency. These cards will be something I'm sure we'll talk about next year, but for this year, the book is closed on these 3 cards. So, this one, I'm a little unsatisfied with, I guess. So, the 3 cards. Dockside, I think should be banned. I do not think Dockside should ever get unbanned, and it is for the nature of casual. I actually loved Dockside for CEDH. It was everywhere, but it was the best thing Red had going on. It had some fun combo enablers. Clones were highly prevalent. We weren't in such this stally, get Ristic study and sit kind of, nature. So for CDH, I love Dockside Extortionist, but I have personally played it in casual, and I've seen other people play it in casual, and it's not okay there. The Dockside ban, I think, should never come off, purely because it looks like a card that should be more okay for casual, because you're like, oh, people aren't playing Chrome Mox on turn 1 or all these other super fast mana rocks. It's not going to explode so fast. No, instead people are going to be building treasures, clues, soul rings, signets, talismans, artifact strategy, decks, like just entire decks that's their theme. All kinds of other things, Palantir of Ornthoptic, and all kinds of other value artifacts. Artifacts and enchantments are everywhere in casual. People rely on it heavily for their mana bases in casual and their acceleration, because people honestly don't play enough lands. So Dockside, I think, needs to stay banned. Jeweled Lotus, on the other hand, I am okay either way, whether it's banned or unbanned. I think it creates some really explosive turn 1s and turn 2s. It can create some unfun play patterns where it's like, oh, I slammed this super powerful commander on turn 2, this 5 mana powerful commander, and I just run over the entire game with it because no one got removal early enough, and it created me too much value. By the time you did remove it, the game's over. And for CDH, I wasn't a fan of Jeweled Lotus. Now, I wonder if that is partially because the decks I play. I currently play Dihada and Kinnan. Neither one of those decks really want a Jeweled Lotus. Dihada could play it. Kinnan doesn't care. Kinnan doesn't want Jeweled Lotus. But it did allow some fun commanders like Atraxa, Itali, Tivit. Tivit is still doing stuff, and so is Itali somewhat. Tivit's doing better than Itali, I think, at least from what I've seen. But it did enable some of these bigger commanders to come in early and beat the Ristic Studies and some other stuff, and your Drannith Magistrates and stuff like that from hitting the board. But it did really create some unbalanced turn cycles where like one person got out a really powerful commander early and it does push the turn one player having advantage more, I feel, because it has a more explosive start. So Jewel Lotus I could honestly go either way with. I don't really care. But people need to be wary if they're playing it in casual. Competitive, I'm fine with it. Casual, I guess I'm fine with it too, but people need to be wary of it at least. Now Mana Crypt. This is the one I wanted unbanned. I've heard a lot of people calling for Jewel Lotus unbanned, and I understand because it is only a commander card. I guess you could play it in Oathbreaker if you play Oathbreaker, right? Actually, I think Oathbreaker banned a lot of fast mana, so I don't even think you can play it there. So, like, you can't play Jewel Lotus anywhere. Mana Crypt you can play in some other formats. But Mana Crypt has been in Commander forever. So that's Commander's been a thing, really. It is an expensive card, and I understand that, but that's not even why I care. I traded for my Mana Crypts, so it is what it is. But for casual play, Mana Crypt versus Soul Ring is actually super close, right? Mana Crypt does allow you to go like turn one Mana Crypt, land, talisman, you know, you can dump out mana. But the 3 life is way more relevant in casual when people are beating each other with damage. In competitive, I would say Mana Crypt is way better than Soul Ring, right? But if you say a casual game goes 10 turns, you lose 15 life on average to your Mana Crypt. That is a significant portion of your life. That's like 2/5 of your life. Something like that. So that's a significant portion, and you can't just ignore that. So I think for casual, also, here's something. I have seen Dockside and Jewel Lotus played extensively in casual play. I have never once seen a casual player play a Mana Crypt. Not saying it doesn't happen. I know there's people out there that do it. It's just, from my experience, I have never seen it. I can justify Mana Crypt a lot more than I can justify the other cards. And Nadu, obviously, just don't leave Nadu. Nadu's dumb. Yeah, so I am kind of disappointed, and I'm more disappointed that they're looking at Jeweled Lotus more than Mana Crypt. Because in my head, Jeweled Lotus creates more unfun situations for the casual player than Mana Crypt does. Mana Crypt is definitely a powerhouse, and it does turn after turn get you 2 mana, right? But so does Soul Ring, and Soul Ring doesn't kill you in the process. And if Soul Ring is a staple of the format, Mana Crypt's been there the entire time too, bud. So I really feel like Mana Crypt should be in the conversation more. And that's what really bothers me. I'm like, Jeweled Lotus makes some unfun play patterns. Mana Crypt does too. I think Jeweled Lotus is more offensive though. So, all right, future bans. Commander has been through a lot since last September. It has been a time of change of hands and new panel being formed and lots of uncertainty around what will remain on the ban list. After this appraisal of the banned cards list and changes, we'd like to take some time to just let things sit for everybody to exhale after waiting for this announcement and have a bit more of a relaxed time in the Commander news world. Additionally, we'd love to give more time for the Commander bracket systems to develop, which will help inform how much moving cards off the ban list and onto the game changer list does for how often and where those cards will show up. So we are counting on no further changes to the ban list for the rest of the year. Starting next year, we can touch the ban list again at more regular intervals. So not just one ban window a year, but we want to hold off for the rest of this year. The only exception will be what I'm calling the Nadu contingency, which is if a new or unbanned card begins to become generally revealed and people just want it gone as soon as possible. We can break that seal and act earlier. However, I'm hopeful we do not need to do this, as it would need to be fairly extreme circumstance. As has often been stressed to me, Commander moves slowly. It's fine to take our time and let everything settle. Stability is a core tenet of the Commander's philosophy. Recently, it hasn't always felt that way. Let's get back to stability again. If you are interested in the review of the cards on the ban list, we've included a summary below. This has been Gavin Verhey on behalf of the Commander format panel. Okay. And then this is, I think, a list of the members on the panel. So I want to look at the game changers here. They had a list of banned and restricted. Is it this one? Oh yeah. Okay, so they also changed the game changers. So I'm gonna end this one here. No, I'll stick with it. I'll just go right through. Okay. So Trouble in Paris is coming off the list. I'm gonna just kind of skim through this one a little quicker. I don't think many people care as much about this, but Trouble in Paris is coming off the list. I agree with that. It actually hoses extra turns, which is what I want in casual. And then Trinisphere. The second card being Trinisphere. This card is not the most fun card to play against. No denying that. However, it tends to be strongest in high power level, like optimized for bracket 4 and CDH. There are many cards on the level of unfun stacks pieces like Sphere of Resistance, Rule of Law, and Nether Void that aren't on the Game Changers list. Okay, I can see that, but I don't care either way on Trinisphere, so that's fine. I definitely agree with Trouble in Paris coming off the list, though. So Game Changer additions. Here are 18 cards we are adding. 18. Wow. Teferi's Protection. Kind of thought that was already on there. Definitely should be. Humility. Yeah, definitely needed to be on there. Narset, Part of the Veils. Yup, I agree with that one. Intuition, which is just the other version of Gifts Ungiven that I was talking about. 3 mana. For an instant, search your library for 3 cards, reveal them, target opponent chooses one, puts that card into your hand, the rest into your graveyard, then shuffle. Yeah. Consecrated Sphinx. Oh no, my baby. No, yeah, it deserves it. It's a super powerful casual card. It's powerful in CEDH if you can actually get it. It's just 6 mana is hard for a lot of decks, but Kanan loves it. I love it. Necropotence. Yes, absolutely. Orcish Bowmasters. Yup. Notion Thief. Yup. Deflecting Swat. Gamble. Worldly Tutor. Yup. All of that. So it was really weird to me that Deflecting Swat wasn't on there. I was just like, Deflecting Swat is such a powerful red card, and you're just gonna gloss over that. Everyone was like, oh, why is Worldly Tutor not on here? Vampiric Tutor's on here, Mystical Tutor's on here, Enlightened Tutor's on here. I agree, for consistency, Worldly Tutor should probably be on there. Though I do kind of feel like tutoring for a creature to your top of your deck is generally less impactful than an artifact or an enchantment for Enlightened Tutor. And Mystical Tutor is definitely stronger. So I do feel like it is the weakest of them. but I feel like it is strong enough to be a game changer. Crop rotation. That's interesting. So crop rotation in casual play is normally just 1 mana fixing. In like competitive formats, it's like crop rotation for Gaia's Cradle and stuff like that. But I don't feel crop rotation should be on here. I know it does get any land, but it's typically like green to fix. Seedborn Muse. I can see it. It's powerful for sure. Yeah, it creates unfair turn equity. Like kind of like Nadu did, not nearly as bad as Nadu, but I'm gonna be playing things on your turn as well as my turn, just every turn. I definitely see that. Natural order, yup, should have been on there to begin with. Food chain, yup, should have been on there to begin with. Aura shards. Creature enters, destroy target artifact or creature, or artifact or enchantment. I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with aura shards. I don't agree with crop rotation and aura shards. Aura shards I could see a little more than crop rotation, but I don't know. Field of the Dead, I get it, yeah. Field of the Dead is fine to be on here. And Mishra's Workshop, yeah. So they have a little bit of explanation for each one. You guys feel free to read that yourself. I'm not going to go in too much depth on them. I do want to see the, yeah, crop rotation. Lower bracket, few tutors, 1 mana tutors that can search up a wide array of cards, like Imperial Seal, Mystical Tutor, and others. Okay, so it's just because it's a 1 mana tutor that can be versatile. Okay, I understand their reasoning. I don't agree with it. I don't think crop rotation is offensive enough to be a game changer. I do understand where they're coming from here though. So I get it. I don't know. Seedborn Muse. Let's see what they say about Seedborn Muse. This card causes you to take what is essentially, when built properly, 3 additional turns worth of effects each turn cycle. It also causes one player to take a disproportionate amount of time in the game. So yeah, exactly what I said. It's the same thing as Nadu, where essentially the turn equity is completely skewed towards the Seedborn Muse player. I get that. I'm still going to play one in Gerard, so it is what it is. I don't have, I think, like any game changers in there, so Gerard's a 3 now. It was already way stronger than 2, so makes sense to me. It's worth calling out here that yes, Seedborn Muse was just in the Abzan armor deck from Tarkir Dragonstorm. First, it was finalized long before the commander brackets existed. Secondly, I'll use this moment to remind that core bracket 2 is on the level of an average modern day pre-constructed commander deck, but it does not mean that there cannot be variants there. We are looking at updating the terminology in the future to pull away from pre-constructed commander decks as a benchmark, as we understand that has caused some confusion. I just wanted to be clear that we know about the collusion in Tarkir Dragon, the inclusion, I believe, is what it's supposed to be in Tarkir Dragonstorm, and want to avoid seeming like a mixed messages. Okay, I get that. Yeah, I do really like Seedborn Muse, but it is a game changer now, and I can live with that. I believe it probably should have been on the list to begin with. Green had very little on the list for some reason at the beginning launch. Like Natural Order, Food Chain, those absolutely need to be on there. I think they're more egregious than Seedborn Muse because they're just gonna destroy you. But yeah, I get it. Natural Order, Food Chain, like I was talking. Let's read Aura Shards here. While it's important to have limiters on artifacts and enchantments in the game of Commander, Some cards can go overboard. Aura Shards is a permanent source of removal, consistently destroying build around cards, mana rocks, and even odd creatures. Many popular deck archetypes, have trouble fighting through an Aura Shards, especially since it's in a color pair full of putting creatures onto the board, while a one slot sweeper like Vandal Blast is totally reasonable. This persistent effect on the game is something we wanted to hit. Okay. I have seen someone resolve an Aura Shards and then someone concede the game because their deck no longer functioned. What part of that is them not constructing their deck correctly? What part of that is it deserves to be a higher bracket? You know, Aura Shards being stuck in bracket 3, so you can't play it in precons, but you can play it in just above a precon. That makes sense to me. Okay. I don't think it's as bad as they would make it out to be. There are some matchups, though, that I definitely just see Aura Shards run over an opponent or two. So Aura Shards being added to the list is... okay, I understand it. I didn't agree with it at first, but reading their explanation definitely helped. Field of the Dead I totally agree with. Workshop I totally agree with. Ooh, this is interesting. Cards that were not added that they considered. At first, we want to tackle categorically our large legendary creatures. Originally, we had a couple of other flagged for inclusion. However, ultimately, there are a lot of powerful commanders out there, and your commander is the one face-up thing everybody knows before the game is started. It is an easy road to start with Corvold, Edgar, Ur-Dragon, Joda, and Atraxa, which Atraxa format. So they're not on the Game Changer list, but they did consider them. So notably, you guys should keep that in mind when you're building these decks. These cards could be put on the Game Changer list in the future. Also down here, they mention a couple other cards. To be transparent, many current leading ideas is that the commander is a game changer if it creates play patterns or game constraints that are unfun or overwhelmingly powerful, or if it qualifies by virtue of being a game changer in the other 99 of the commander deck. A commander that is just incredibly powerful would not qualify for a game changers list. So in this world, cards like Tergrid, Grand Arbiter would remain on the list because the experience they endanger, while the cards like Yuriko and Urza would likely come off the list because they are also solely about power. Okay. So basically, they're saying Yuriko and Urza would more likely come off the list than things like Tergrid, and Grand Arbiter because they're more okay with powerful commanders than they are unfun, basically, is what I'm getting out of this. Tergrid and Grand Arbiter makes gameplay very lopsided and unfun, and like it's a very slow play pattern where it drags out the game and is just overall not a good time. Yuriko and Urza are incredibly powerful, but they're gonna end the game, and then you can move on to the next one and play against something else. Okay. Farewell. Now with that out of the way, let's go through some specific cards. Okay, So these are cards not currently on the Game Changer list that could easily make it on there in the next time. Farewell, they have their eye on it, but not a place for the Game Changers currently. I could see that. Farewell is a very powerful board wipe. The only thing that I think makes it where it's not immediately a Game Changer is it's 6 mana and a sorcery. So if this is a 5 mana sorcery or a 6 mana instant, it would absolutely be a Game Changer. But yeah, the fact that you could choose all of them is actually what's crazy about Farewell. Is if you're just in a really bad spot, you can just get rid of everything. So I actually think Farewell probably should have been a Game Changer. Alms Collector. We elected not to hit this card along with Notion Thief, Narset, and Bowmaster because it only punishes drawing more than one card, not additional draws, and it still refunds a single draw on them. On top of being in the color identity that doesn't tend to naturally pair with these effects. Yeah, I agree with that. So this one has, it's 4 mana flash for 3/4. It says, when an opponent would draw 2 or more cards, instead, you and that player each draw 1. So they still get a card out of it. It is still hosing their draws a little bit, but I think it's fine. Mana Drain not being a Game Changer is pretty nuts to me. Mana Drain, currently a powerful counterspell. It is the strongest in mind to late game actions as a counterspell that gives you a mana boost while both of those things are powerful. A one-time surge of mana can be fun and unlikely to warp the game when it happens later in the game. I disagree. Mana Drain in casual games will counter a 3 to 4 mana spell, and then the player that had the Mana Drain will play their 4th or 5th land, and they will go up to somewhere between 7 and 9 mana. When people are playing their 4th to 5th land, having a game-ending spell hit the stack, people are, the first like turn or 2 or 3 is building your board state. The 4th turn is pivoting towards how I'm going to close the game. And if you counter one of those pivotal pieces and then slam just a finisher, you know, some really big spell, I think Mana Drain absolutely should be a Game Changer. And I have 4 of these. I own Mana Drains. I am totally okay with them being Game Changers. Mystic Remora, yeah, I understand. Force of Will, this card is currently on the list. We talked about removing it. We elected to leave it on for now. It does put you down a card, but it is still an incredibly powerful way to protect whatever you are doing on your own turn. And the ability to hit opponents' commanders in large creatures, even while tapped out, is notable. We have elected to leave it for now. Do not unban or take Force of Will off the Game Changer list. I do not want to see Force of Will in Precon level Magic. That is the thing you have to ask yourself. Should this card be in Precon level Magic? If the answer is yes, doesn't have to be a Game Changer. The answer is no, probably should be a Game Changer. That is not, well, don't get me wrong. If they printed a Precon with Force of Will in it, I'm going to buy it. I want more Force of Wills. But I don't want that in my low-level commander. Right? I like CEDH for CEDH. I like casual for casual. I don't want to mix them. You know what I mean? Wheel effects. Ooh, this is interesting. Great Pack and Dictative Urbos. In small doses, these are fun, but when pushed to the limit, they are frustrating. They do require some setup to be at their strongest, and opponents to not have taken tokens or other small materials to sacrifice. We elected not to do anything about them at this time, but if you think these enchantments should categorically be on the list, please let us know. So both of these were actually part of that Mirren deck that I was talking about a little bit ago. It's interesting. I didn't even think of these two when I was thinking about the game changers list. Overall, I think they're fine. Most of the time, you're going to spend at least 8 mana, right? Because you're going to spend 4 to 5 mana for the enchantment, and then 3 to 4 for the sacrifice effect. So it's like 7 or 8 mana to actually get a trigger off of these. I think they're fine. I do feel like, though, for the sake of consistency, Necrodominance, if you're putting Necropotence on there, Necrodominance should also be on there. Why, though? The bar as Necrodominance does, but we could imagine looking at it in the future as part of the cases. Okay. So, I mean, it does reduce your max hand size to 5 and stuff. It is a nerfed version for sure. Raider Hoof. It is currently true that this card can end games. However, an 8 mana green creature is acceptable to end the game this way. While cheating it into play early by the way of something like Natural Order is a problem, a long game Crater Hoof is something we believe is acceptable. I totally agree. If you're going to allow Coalition Victory and Worldfire and all these other Expropriate, all these other big, yeah, Crater Hoof is totally fine. I think Crater Hoof in a pre-con is fine. Crater Hoof is only abusable when you have massive board states at later stages of the game. Like, if you have like 3 creatures and Crater Hoof comes down, yeah, it's an 8/8 when it comes in, but your other creatures are what? A 4/4 to a 6/6. You maybe kill 1 player if you have 3 other creatures. Maybe. You don't end the game. You have 3 opponents. You have to have 6, 7, 8 creatures for Crater Hoof to do a thing to actually like end the game. Unless it's been a long game and people's lives are down. But at that point, an 8 mana spell that kills the table is totally acceptable. Crater Hoof does not need to be a game changer. I wouldn't even consider it. Great Henge, they considered. Okay. Green Tutors, it looks like they were looking at. I think if I was going to do one of them, it would be Tooth and Nail. Tooth and Nail being able to find you 2 things and put them on the board is pretty powerful, but it is like, what? It's 9 mana? 9 mana, 2 big creatures into play to end the game. Same situation as Crater Hoof, ultimately. Though one of them is probably going to be Crater Hoof. The other one's going to also be a big creature with it. So it is more powerful than Crater Hoof for 1 more mana. But I think Tooth and Nail is still acceptable. And the other ones, I don't. The amount of mana you have to put into one of these, like a Green Sun, Port of Calling, or Finale of Devastation to actually get the effect you want to end the game out of them it's a lot, and it's an acceptable amount to win the game. Unless you're doing like infinite mana shenanigans. And if you're doing that, that falls under the combo restrictions for the brackets. So I think not having these in the bracket system is actually fine. Maybe Court of the Calling should be considered due to its Convoke being able to cheat the cost. But then you have a bunch of tapped creatures, so you might not actually be ending the game. Because if you tap down your whole board and get a Crater Hoof into play, those creatures are now tapped and can no longer swing at an opponent. So, Defense of the Heart. I'm not familiar with this card. The setup for this one is much more minimal than Tooth and Nail, asking an opponent to have 3 creatures. However, it does take a turn to go off, creating potentially a moment for counterplay, and is hard to make happen early, where it is most powerful. So let's see this. This is 4 mana, green and 3. During your upkeep, if one of your opponents controls 3 or more creatures, sacrifice Defense of the Heart. Search your library for up to 2 creature cards, put those cards into play, and then shuffle your library. Okay. I could see it. That's powerful for 4 mana. I would definitely consider this way more than Tooth and Nail, but it does what they say it does. It does allow more counterplay around it. I understand them not making it a game changer. I didn't know this card existed, though. So I don't know if You should have brought attention to it, because now I might try it. No. I I think it's fine. I actually, this one maybe should have been a game changer. I don't know. Let me know on what you think of Defense of the Heart. Soul Ring. There has been some discourse around whether Soul Ring should be a game changer and if all decks should be allowed one game changer. While we're not doing system level changes at this time, we want to re-emphasize what we said in previous article, that Soul Ring is a huge face for the commander, handed down from Sheldon himself, and we are not planning to change or restrict it at this time. In terms of the every deck gets one game changer card discussion, an important piece of the game changers list involves creating a safety bubble if you don't want to have to play against Rhystic Study, Smothering Tide, Cyclonic Rift. You have a bracket that you can play where I've read too much, I can't read anymore. You have a bracket where you can play at where won't. Okay. Allowing everybody to play one flies in the face of that. I agree. I don't think bracket 2 should have one game changer. I don't think you would ever give bracket 1 a game changer. Giving bracket 2 a single game changer, kind of like, I understand the push for it, because the idea is like, hey, make Soul Ring a game changer, make bracket 2 allowed one game changer, so that's your Soul Ring, and then call it good. But I don't agree with that. As far as Soul Ring being a game changer, I'm totally okay with it. I think Soul Ring gets away with way too much just because they stuff it in every precon. I think it is way more powerful, and the fact that everyone is playing one in every single deck. How would you feel if you went into games and you knew every single player was playing Mana Crypt? Right? I know assume that Mana Crypt has been printed a bajillion times and its value is nothing, but everyone's playing a Mana Crypt. It's a very similar situation. You're like, oh, but they have to draw the one Soul Ring in their deck. Well, yeah, they would have to draw the one Mana Crypt, but it still creates these really unfun dynamics, especially in the early stages of the game, where one person jumps out to a massive lead over the other players, especially if you go land, Soul Ring, sign it. Arcane Sign It specifically is the most powerful one. Yeah, if you just, that's your turn 1, those 3 cards, you better, your arch enemy right off the get-go. 4 mana turn 1, turn 2 you're going in with at least with 4 mana, if not 5 if you play your land. You play pretty much whatever your deck has, unless you're like some massive ramp deck or something. But yeah, I'm totally okay if they want to make Soul Ring a game changer. They didn't, but if they wanted to, I'd be totally okay with that. So, okay. So this is the complete list. Duraneth, Enlightened Tutor, Humility, Sarah's Sanctum, Smothering Tide, Teferi's Protection, Consecrated Sphinx, Cyclone Rift, Expropriate. Oh, Expropriate is on here. Force of Will, Fierce Guardianship, Gifts Ungiven, Intuition, Jin-Gitaxias, the original? Yeah, the original. Mystical Tutor, Narset, Rhystic Study, Sway of the Stars, Thassa's Oracle, Urza, Lord High Artificer, Bolas's Citadel, Braid's Cabal Minion, Demonic Tutor, Imperial Seal, Necropotence, Opposition Agent, Bowmasters, Tergrid, God of Fright, Vampiric Tutor, Ad Nauseam, Deflecting Swat, Gamble, Jessica's Will, Underworld Breach, Crop Rotation, Food Chain, Gaia's Cradle, Natural Order, Seedborn Muse, Survival of the Fittest, Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger, Worldly Tutor, Aura Shards, Coalition Victory, Grand Arbiter Augustine, Kinnan, Bonder Prodigy, Yuriko Tiger Shadow, Notion Thief, Winota Joiner of Forces, Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox, Field of the Dead, Glacial Chasm, Grim Monolith, Lion's Eye Diamond, Mana Vault, Mishra's Workshop, Mox Diamond, Panoptic Mirror, The One Ring, and Tabernacle at Pendril Vale. Okay, so quite a long list of game changers now. I do like that the ones that they unbanned, they put into the game changer list right away. And if they prove to still not be problematic, they can then take them from the game changer list and just completely unrestrict them. I like that approach, and I appreciate their safe approach to it. I do really think that the mana drain should have been on here, though. Also, not seeing Sylvan Library. Think Sylvan Library should have been on here a while ago, before it got the green secret layer thing and it got reprinted and its price dropped significantly. I would have been like, okay, no one really plays it. I have seen Sylvan Library in many casual games now, and I feel like that should have been considered. I didn't even see it on their considered list. So, yeah. Sylvan Library, I think, should have at least be considered. And yeah, Mana Drain should be on the Game Changers list. I don't see a reason it's not. So, all right. I think that's all I got for this discussion. If you guys have any comments, concerns, agree, disagree, just let me know. There's a comment section down there. Say, hey, your take on this is wrong. It might be. I could misunderstand things. I also have a limited sample size. I don't have the whole picture, neither does Wizards of the Coast. So while I don't always agree with everything they do, I do really appreciate their effort in trying to balance such a lopsided format like Commander. You can do all kinds of wacky stuff. You can do just like the epitome of wacky and like non-powerful interactive things, all the way up to legacy play, basically. So it is such a hard format to balance. I am not envious in the slightest of their having to make decisions. I ultimately do feel like they should be discussing unbanning Mana Crypt, not Jeweled Lotus. And yeah, that's my opinion. So let me know if you think I'm wrong. Until next time, this was Remedy X. Goodbye.